I was really, I felt I have a problem talking about these things, because I really have this impression that you when I talk about this, that you put a lot of emphasis on the subjective criteria, and I think there are two consequences of this. I mean, two reasons of why we tend to emphasize the subjective criteria of beautiness. I mean that the notion that we decide who's beautiful or not. It's all about our own preferences, and it changes a lot across people, across cultures. But so I think there might be two reasons. One reason is that we might be threatened, because if, hold on a second. Okay, you can see the text. So if you, yeah, I've seen it 2 times, and I could watch it more. Beautiful performances, screenplay, and direction, everything. So it might be threatening for some of us. So the first disclaimer here is, from my perspective, we all are beautiful. Guys, we all are beautiful. Beautiful enough, attractive enough. Why? There is a very good reason for this. We all have reproduced for the last hundreds of millions of years. We all have reproduced, so we were attractive enough, and it's enough. It's like with money. It's you must be rich enough, not have all the money in the world to be the richest person to be happy. You just need to have enough. So we have enough attractiveness to replicate, to continue the history of life. Our ancestors were attractive enough. So we all are attractive enough to go on. So it's a positive remark. And another one is related to cognition. So I think it's, and I mentioned it a lot of times, but sometimes I tend to forget about this, that we tend to focus on differences rather than what's common, right? What's common, what does not change. We habituate to it and don't see it. We just don't see it. So this is one of the reasons why when I presented the face of the beautiful woman who was photoshopped by people from all around the world, you focused on the differences, not on the common features that were present there all the time, because they were present there all the time. So if on one of the photos her eyelashes were larger, we immediately noticed this. But if each of the faces from each photoshopper was roughly equally symmetrical, we didn't notice this, because each of them was like this. So there are some subjective ornamentations, definitely. But the emphasis, we should also focus on common features, which are very often much more difficult to observe. So, yeah, just think of the blobfish. You remember him or her? She's also beautiful, but from the perspective of other blobfish. And blobfish, there are probably also differences between blobfish. If you take a couple of blobfish, some of them may seem more attractive to other blobfish, some of them may seem less attractive to other blobfish. But if we look at the blobfish, we focus on common features. We focus on common features. All blobfish look the same. All blobfish look disgusting to us. Although, as you might probably know, this is not what blobfish look like in their natural environment. They look like this when you take them out of high pressure water. So they're not that ugly, but still. we should be focused on, we should take into account this. Or the sand puppy, another animal that I really love. Which also seems ugly to us, but no wonder that there are more beautiful sand puppies and less beautiful sand puppies from the perspective of other sand puppies. And when we look at sand puppies, we see the common features and they're ugly. But when they, based on our criteria, right? If we all lived under the surface, and perhaps we will live under the surface with no access to light, probably we might be more attracted to different kinds of skin rather than our smooth, beautiful skin that absorbs light very, very efficiently. So it might change dramatically, and other features might cause the feeling of attractiveness in us, because it's not subjective. There are some subjective things, but it's masterpiece for me, says Anna about Ślepnąc od światła. Exactly, it's a masterpiece. I didn't intend to watch it, but I just saw just a couple of minutes at my friend's place, and I said, wow, how is it possible? It's so good. So, one more comment before we start, because you asked about glasses. You asked about glasses last week, right? Do I remember correctly? And we didn't. I didn't show this slide to you. So I googled. Google scholared this glasses and attractiveness phenomenon, and because I was curious whether there is something more nuanced about this, and actually there is one interesting thing worth mentioning, or two. So the first one is that there is the stereotype of glasses, that glasses make you less attractive, and it's true. It's true. There are multiple studies across tens of years, across decades, that show that wearing glasses makes you unattractive. Sorry for this, but they make you look more intelligent and more successful. So I think this is something that you also mentioned. So, it can be a complex, it can have a complex effect. Because if you seek intelligence and successfulness in other people, in potential partners, for instance, then you might be attracted to persons who wear glasses. And I think you mentioned this last week. So although you perceive this person as less physically attractive, you might perceive this person as generally more attractive, because physical attractiveness is not the only, and in many cases, it's not the main thing that we seek in our partners. Once you surpass a certain threshold. So it's an interesting thing about glasses. So intelligence and successfulness. I didn't know about the successfulness. I knew about the intelligence, but I didn't know about the successfulness. One more interesting finding in this study is that it's good to wear rimless glasses. This is funny, but rimless glasses are perceived in a different way than glasses with rims, full rim glasses. And rimless glasses, I don't know why. They don't know why. Perhaps it might be related to how they're presented in media. Doctors often wear rimless glasses and commercials, advertisements, because they seem to look nicer. They look more expensive, I think. Also, it's just my opinion, but they make you. People who wear rimless glasses are perceived, compared to people with rimful glasses, are perceived as equally attractive or equally less attractive, equally intelligent and successful, but more trustworthy. They seem more trustworthy. It's an interesting little fact that you might consider buying your next glasses if you want to be perceived as most trustworthy. And scientists, cognitive scientists, psychologists, and all sorts of this type of people, I think they like to be perceived as trustworthy. So, but I'm wearing my rimless glasses because my face is asymmetrical. One of my ears is a little bit higher, and if I have rimful glasses, I always get everyone says, "Oh, your glasses are broken." I said, "No, it's not my glasses. It's one of my ears that's broken." So we'll talk about symmetry today a lot later. So an interesting fact worth mentioning. So I just repeat that we might, from our subjective everyday perspective, we might perceive beauty as arbitrary because we pay attention to differences, and especially when we perceive people in your own group, in your in-group, you focus on common features. So that's why we think, okay, I like this person more, I like this person less. And that's because this person has this feature and the other person has another feature. But basically, if you make a research, real cross-cultural research, within culture research, cross-ethnical research, across ages, I mean not like Middle Ages, but people of different age cohorts, there is this truth. There is this truth that beauty is not arbitrary. There is a huge amount of agreement between people, like 88. I think it was some Kappa or some other statistic here that tests agreement. And if you have 88, it's huge. It's huge. So it shows that if we, on the average, there are all sorts of differences, right? But on the average, it's quite easy for people to assess attractiveness within cultures. So if you take a couple of people from the population and you give them like 1,000 of other people to evaluate on a very simple scale of attractiveness, from not attractive at all to extremely attractive, then there might be some differences on this ladder, but generally the more attractive people and the less attractive people will remain almost the same. So like if this statistic is 0.88 and 1 is maximum, then it's really huge. And it also applies to across cultures, across ethnicities, for adults and for children. So sorry, it's not like this, that as we might expect that it's all cultural. So we take a couple. So if we stop calling people more attractive or less attractive, people will forget about this. Or if we start call people who are not attractive attractive, then they will become attractive in our perception. It seems not to be the case. But still, we all are attractive, but some of us are more attractive. Let's stay at this level of interpretation. And there are some positive features attached to attractiveness, because I'm really a little bit tired of using this evolutionary interpretations, because it's really simplistic for me. It seems simplistic for me, and very handy, because you can, and I will provide you with more elaborate cognitive interpretations. But from the evolutionary perspective, it seems so obvious, and the example of blobfish and the mole rat is very suggestive that there are, what we perceive attractive is not attractive aesthetically, not only attractive aesthetically, it signals some features. So we are attracted to certain features, so certain markers, rather than the attractiveness itself. It's not like, is the example with food. We like tasteful food, not because the taste is aesthetically nice, but because we evolved to like tastes that signal nutritious food. So we like sweet, we like fat, we like variety, we don't like bitter. And it signals. It's a very important signal. It's not that we like it aesthetically or we prefer to like it. That there was some time in you. Do you remember a moment in your life when you decided, okay, from now on I will like bitter taste and I will like sweet tastes? And so, yeah, a good example is with the preference for sweet and for salty snacks. Which kind of snacks do you prefer? Salty or sweet snacks? So if you have some cookies, with chocolate cookies, for instance, on a party, do you prefer chocolate cookies or do you prefer salt sticks or something similar? Write to me, write in the chat. What's your preference? Do you prefer salt sticks or do you prefer sweet cookies? What's your preference about this? I'm really surprised when I see my wife, my wife's preference for salty snacks. I also like salty snacks. I like both kinds of snacks, but generally I have much stronger preference for chocolate. And Anna also likes salt sticks. That's so strange to me. It's so surprising to me that anyone can really prefer salt stick. Martina, you are much more like me. So sweet. Julita also likes sweet salt snack. So do you remember the moment in your life when you liked salt and sweet snacks equally, and you decided from now on I will prefer the sweet one? No, you can't remember this because it's genetical. So there, it's genetically based preference. Of course, it all interacts with the environment. So if you have genes that make you more likely to develop the taste for sweet snacks or the taste for salt snacks, the environment also plays a role. But basically, it's a manifestation of your genetic influences. So there is, I don't like sweet things. Ooh, really? You should go to a psychotherapist if you don't like sweet things. What's your problem? I don't like sweet things. Okay, I'm joking. Don't go to a psychotherapist. So it's genetical. So it's, although I was really surprised because my son Alex, who's 15 months old, he has no problem with eating grapefruit, and he does not show any sign of repulsion from this extremely bitter fruit. That's really surprising to me. So he might be at the level of choosing, perhaps, or still. I think that his curiosity dominates over his preferences. So he's so attracted to novelty that I think it dominates over his preferences. So he's so happy that he receives something new, something with such exquisite and distinctive taste like grapefruit. So he can eat a whole grapefruit. Can you feed? Just Google for me. Can you feed 15-month-old children, toddlers, with grapefruit? Is it? I know that in Asian countries, grapefruit is considered something that's not edible. You shouldn't eat it. You must not eat it. So there are some facts that attach that show that we are not crazy. That we are attracted to certain kind of people that look in a certain way. We are not crazy about this. that there really are some positive features attached to this. Oh, of course, it's just as I mentioned last week, it's just a matter of frequency. That it's a little bit more frequent. So if you are a less attractive person, no problem. You can have work success, popularity, dating success, sex, physical health, be extroverted, have more traditional attitudes, high self-esteem, high social skills, mental health. Or you can be highly attractive, and you can be lousy at work, not popular, difficult to find a date, have little sex, low physical health, be introverted, have liberal attitudes and things like this. So it's just a matter of frequencies, whether it's easier to find a person of a certain type in a certain group. We should be aware of this, because whenever, right, can be dangerous when you are taking medicines. Yeah, some of them, I think. Yeah, okay. And drinking alcohol and antibiotics, it's not true. You can drink alcohol and take antibiotics. There are a couple of them that you cannot take with alcohol. So don't rely on my opinions. I'm not a doctor. I'm a psychologist. But I read a paper some time ago that it's not true. That you cannot mix antibiotics with alcohol. We started talking about food, and I had to start eating my Lay's chips. Okay, I have a package as well, so I think I'll take a snack during our break. We started taking what a Freudian sleep. Saying Freudian sleep is a Freudian slip squared. So instead of saying Freudian slip, I said Freudian sleep. What a Freudian slip squared. So, and they're more attractive, and there is, it is like this. So, more attractive political candidates get more votes. When we are confronted with attractive people, we try to be morally better. It's nice. And it also generalizes to beautiful objects. Like we say beautiful cars, for instance. We say, oh my God, this car is beautiful. It means that it's good. Nonsense. Right, Martina? Sorry for this, but... Can I mention your car, Martina? It's a very beautiful car, but I heard you complaining on your car. So we have this generalize from people to objects. If a car is beautiful, it must be a good car. It's not true. And yeah, okay. I wanted to say something else, but I won't. Not to be criticized for being sexiest. So it's easier to. Martina says that I'm right. But your car looks really lovely. It really looks lovely. It's looking lovely. Attractiveness at work. Attractive individuals have it easier. They are more likely to be selected as business partners. They are much more often hired. They get promotion. People predict higher success from them. And their performance is evaluated better. So it also plays a work. Martina says, hold on, I wanted to, sorry, I need to move it. Martina says, do you want to buy it? I'll sell it. Okay, if anyone wants to buy yellow Volkswagen Beetle, there is one that you can buy. Oh no, Martina just removed her comment. So does it mean that you immediately received a purchase offer from someone? From the viewers? That's great. So it's not only a lecture, it's a place when you can purchase a car. So this is also a striking evidence, because men are more helpful or less helpful individuals, they are less helpful individuals in general. As I said earlier, there are there are men who are extremely helpful and women who are extremely unhelpful. But statistically speaking, men are less social and less helpful for this reason, probably. But there is one case in which men are more helpful than women, and this is when a beautiful woman asks for help. Attractive woman asks for help. Did I say health? Too much Freudian slips today. So men are extremely dedicated to provide help if they see that a woman is attractive. And when they don't see the physical attractiveness of a woman, so they are optimistic about this. There was a clever study. You can read about it here. It was Schwartz, yeah, where emails were sent to all sorts of people from someone who planned to transfer to another university, and this woman asked people whether they might provide her with more information about the department and things like this. So in one case, there was a photo attached. Martina, you can attach, you can send the link. I will not, prevent you from doing this. I hope people will not spam their advertisements here, but I cannot prevent you from that. I just can ask you whether it's really the best place to do it, whether you are so desperate to sell the car, because it really shows that people will be very, very, anxious. Whether if you want to sell this car so badly, does it mean that people really should buy this car? If you want to, make other people happy, or perhaps you want to make other people happy so much. So, So another example, right? And the difference is really high in terms of people who respond to this email and the length of the response. So when we send emails, there very often is attached a photo of you. So I also have photos of you, but they are really so tiny that I have very, very, very high difficulty in determining whether I would be more or less helpful to you if you ask me for help. For help again. This will be a lecture about Freudian slips all the time. So more likely to respond and longer responses generated. Very clever study. So if we look at the very nice meta-analysis and the review actually of a research that shows which theory is the best supported by research, it's a nice slide, isn't it? We will lose all the additional viewers that we have now. So whether the social theory is supported by research, so the theory that shows that the differences between attractive and less attractive people are because we identify with social expectations. So people treat attractive people who they consider attractive in a different way, and we identify with this. So a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, and this explains differences on 12 dimensions. So the literature is not very much supportive of this theory. It better supports good genes theory that except for the fact that attractiveness is more strongly related to status and fitness than to other types of characteristics. You can write the paper Sorry, oh, it's the author. I forgot to give you the surname here, the reference here. So it's very nice paper. So, and one of the features is partially supported, and the best supported theory is the differential parental solicitude theory, which is very interesting. So that there might be an influence of how much investment your parents, how high is the investment of your parents, depending on your fitness or perceived fitness of children, and attractiveness is one of them. I had a very similar discussion, and I mentioned this theory with a friend of mine when we had 2 papers to write, and we thought, okay, so one of the papers is a little bit ugly. It's a little bit ugly. And the other is about coronavirus, so it's beautiful. So where should we invest our energy, right? So the conclusion was, let's not waste our energy for the ugly one, for the ugly paper. Let's just focus and put all our energy into nurturing the beautiful one. In our society, it's not that needed, right? We really take care of people who are less fit. We try to support them, provide them with all sorts of help, but generally there is some intuitive urge that we probably need to confront to do this, because there is quite a lot of support for the differential parental solicitude theory. So, but we should remember that. I mean, we will talk about physical attractiveness a little bit more in the next lecture, but we should remember that physical attractiveness is the easiest but not the best predictor for the evaluation of others. That beautiful people can have very critical flaws. It's also documented by research. So, for instance, narcissism. Beautiful people are more narcissistic, so self-focused. They are much more likely to invest in themselves rather than other people. And if we seek relationship, we seek mutual investment in this relationship, that we can give to other people something that we need, and other people can give to us something that we need. That's why we make pairs, because we think that it will be easier to live together. To live together, another Freudian slip. You can write a comment whenever you hear a Freudian slip in my talking. So, and we may be aware of this narcissism, especially if we notice this. Again, it's a statistical fact. It's a statistical fact. D.32 is a modest size of difference, so it's worth considering. So it's like D.42 is like 5 points on the IQ scale. So the difference between someone who is 110 IQ and someone who is 115 IQ. If you consider here IQ as a metaphor for narcissism, just to understand the scaling better. So it can be quite a difference. But it's a statistical fact, so it doesn't mean that the more beautiful you are, the more narcissistic you are. It just means that there are more narcissistic people among beautiful people, and not that every beautiful people is more narcissistic. We should be aware of this. And we evolve greatly, and because our environment changes dramatically. This is what you mentioned last week when we talked about glasses, that perhaps the environment has changed so much that wearing glasses can be more important than not wearing glasses in some industrialized urban environments. So, because the perception of intelligence and successfulness and trustworthiness, if you have rimless glasses, can be much more highly evaluated in the total amount of other people's attractiveness, not physical attractiveness, but general attractiveness, than the physical attractiveness itself. Right? Because physical attractiveness is only part of other people's attractiveness. All those qualities that attract you, that pull you towards a certain person, that make you want to spend more time and interact more often and more intensely with a certain person. So, but the risk is, but there is this risk. If someone is narcissistic, and narcissistic people are often also Machiavellic people, and they are also more likely to be psychopathic people. So that's why we call it the dark triad. Dark triad, because narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellism are strongly interrelated. So if you see someone who's beautiful, you know that this person might be more narcissistic. Doesn't look like, but you should be aware of this, that this person is also more likely to be Machiavellistic. And Machiavellistic people are very, very skillful in building some instrumental relationships, and they are likely to hide something from you, to pretend that they are not like this, and that's how they work, or psychopathic persons. So, if you are very beautiful, if there are very beautiful people among you, and at least as far as I can see your 8 pixels large photos, you are very beautiful, all of you. So you shouldn't be happy. You shouldn't be only happy about this, because it can mean that you also are more likely to be flawed with some personality traits, bad personality traits. You can work on, of course. So we all can get more attractive on the evolution ladder, and everyone can decline. And today's ugly, maybe the future's beautiful. Right? It can be like this. It changed a little bit. Some of it does not change at all, but some features can change if the evolution changes dramatically. Because let's face it, our environment was always like this for the last millions of years. It hasn't changed much until the age of industrialization 100 years ago. Then it changed dramatically, and now the urbanization and digitalization, it all changes our world, not in quantitative measures, it's in qualitative measures. It's a completely different environment that our children will live in, and our grandchildren will live in, that will require different characteristics. Definitely it will require more intellectual abilities and less physical strength, less health, because the medicine will be outstanding in a couple of years, in a couple of decades, definitely. We will cure cancer, we will cure infertility, we will cure everything. And it's like 20, 30 years. We will be immortal. That's more than obvious. I'm not, because we do not need to age, we do not need to die. We really don't. And we will be able to control it. I don't hope, it's only my intuition. I don't think that we will be immortal. I mean, our generation or your generation, but your children will probably have the liberty to become immortal. I don't know whether it's good or bad. Do you think we will be immortal? Do you think it would be good to be immortal from the psychological perspectives? What might be the benefits? Or benefits are quite obvious, but what might be the drawbacks of being immortal? What might be the drawbacks of being immortal? Do you have any opinion? Any opinion about this? So we'll continue a couple of minutes more talking about faces. So what's attractive in faces? And one of the nicest, and not necessarily evolutionary, but perhaps a little bit as well, but it also has some cognitive interpretation. One of the interpretation of faces attractiveness. Some people have already been immortal, like Bella Cullen. Who's this guy? I feel I missed something. What's Bella Cullen? Is it a real person, or is he symbolically immortal or physically immortal? Because these can be two different things. Or did he transfer his mind to some quantum computer? When I said about immortality, I meant our body. So, what's attractiveness in faces? One of the nicest and the most robust indicators is okay. It's not necessarily what I wanted to say. Okay, it's a fact that you probably know because it's very interesting, and it's not only a part of science. People generally talk about this, and they know this. So faces that are, I think I should, faces that are, hold on, average, that are the average of faces in the population. Okay, you probably heard about this. Well, my son, my 9 years old son, made a very nice comment about this, because I asked Max, tell me, are these women beautiful or not? And what he mentioned, because this is what he mentioned in most cases, when I asked him about attractiveness, he says, oh no, none of them is beautiful. None of them is beautiful. I said, okay, what are you talking about? And then I showed him this slide, and he says, oh, but these girls were more beautiful than any of these girls here, he says. It's a 100% comment that I expected. He said, oh, but these girls here, these women here, are much more attractive, much more beautiful. He didn't say attractive, he said beautiful, than any girl here. So it's a perfect comment to this effect. A perfect comment. I love children. I don't love students, because whenever I ask you about something, you always give me some too much sophisticated answers. And not this straightforward answer that I would expect in most cases. Because he said exactly what this effect is about. That if you average, because these girls here are just an average. I calculated this average myself. It's just the average of these faces here. Couple of faces averaged together, they made one super beautiful face. And they are really beautiful to me. I think to most people, they are really beautiful. And these guys here are also the mixture of these guys here. The color is a little bit light, so, but I think I mixed all genders. They're quite similar to this guy. I mean, not genders, but ethnicities. Kalina says, you don't know Canon movies. You must catch up on it. Bella Cullen. Okay. Don't have time for watching movies because I make movies. Hot 16 clips. 1 week, 1 minute. no time. It's like when they asked this writer, sci-fi, one of the best sci-fi writers, Asimov, what are his favorite authors, what kind of books he reads. He said, I don't read books because I write them. So there is some there is an interesting if you want to play with these faces, you can visit faceresearch.org and you can play with it. It's very, very interesting experience to see, to get to something. Just imagine, right? Using this, we can get to something that does not happen in the nature. It doesn't happen in the nature because such averaging doesn't happen in the nature. So, because what happens it happens from time to time. What happens in the nature is that we have average faces. We have average faces, and most people in our population have average faces. But an average face is not the average of faces, right? This is surprising. It's a very good question to your exam. A tricky one. Average of faces, when A will be the average face, and it will be the wrong answer, because the correct answer will be the average of faces, which is a different thing. So mathematical average, even a mathematical average of faces. So it shows our mathematical abilities of our brain to calculate the average of faces. So because average face that is average in attractiveness, right? It's average in attractiveness. If we average faces, something different happens. We don't get the average face, we get the prototype face. We get a very face-like face. So a face that is deprived of all those ornaments that you mentioned earlier, is deprived of everything that differs, and we get face. It's just the face. Your face is just the face, without unnecessary details. So this is the average of faces. One reason for this might be the fact that if we look at faces, we like to see faces, and prototype faces are more face-like. So they are more cognitive prototype theory. Easier to process, easier to, much nicer, much more pleasant to process. So it's like with chairs. They differ, but you can boil them down to one feature, or like two features, or three features. A chair is something that you must sit on, something that holds your body, and something that you can put your back to, and that's it. Only 3 features. And if you look at all those chairs, you should use to describe them as they are much more features. Most of them are redundant. So attractiveness is also related to familiarity. This might be interpreted, or there might be two explanations, two explanations working at the same time. Because if there are 2 explanations of something, it not necessarily means that they are contradictory. They can supplement each other. A very nice line of research shows that We like faces, we perceive faces as more attractive also when they are more familiar. When they are more familiar. It's a very tricky, very nice way to do this kind of research. We just morph faces. There are very good types of software that you can morph faces, all sorts of faces. And in one of this clever research, the researchers took a photo of the person and then they asked them to rate politicians. They asked them to rate politicians, how attractive they are, and they morphed their faces so that each politician looked more like the person, more like the subject, or more like the research participant. It was like, I think, 35% or something morph, and no question about this. There was a strong effect for higher preference for morphed faces. So we like politicians that look similar to us. They look similar to us. And why is that? Right? Why is that? And one of the explanation is that we use a mental shortcut. We use a cognitive shortcut. So we attribute certain personalities to other people based on what they look like. And if they look like us, if they are a bit similar to us, we think that they might possess some of our features. And our features in healthy individuals, if you are not depressed, then most people have rather positive self-view. Rather positive, not extremely positive, like some of you narcissistic, beautiful people, beautiful creatures that have excessively positive self-view, but generally we have a rather positive self-view. We are rather optimistic about ourselves, and we attribute a lot of positive qualities to ourselves. So if another person is similar to us, we might have the tendency to attribute the same set of characteristics to this person. As simple as that. Of course, another explanation that I wouldn't like to bore you to death is the evolutionary one, that if a person is similar, it's likely that they bear the same genes, and a kind of kin support here. So support people who are related to us might also play a role here. But both effects can operate together. Faces, there are also some after effects. We like more faces that are similar to those that we have already seen, or a kind of reminiscence. So if we saw something earlier, we tend to like it more, and it also works for faces. So another explanation, right? And again, right? It can have a cognitive explanation, and evolutionary one. We are more focused on the cognitive processes. We try to see them whenever it's possible. So we might emphasize the like mere exposure effect, for instance, that the fact that you saw something makes you like it more, but also just because of the processing ease. But of course, if you insist, you might also add this evolutionary perspective. So if you saw something earlier and you're still alive, then you have less reasons to be afraid of it. So you tend to like it more. So let's end with symmetry here. So the face is one of the effects that you probably observed. That you probably observed when I showed you the averages, is not only the fact that these faces were more prototypical, but also it can result from the fact that they were more symmetrical. And of course, again, prototypes are usually symmetrical. Because asymmetry is not the quality of the prototype. It's usually, if it occurs, is a quality of the phenotype. So we should be more or less symmetrical, and if we are not, it means that there might be that we might be subjected to some difficulties during our development. We are not 100. The phenotype is not the 100% replica of or expression of our genes. It's obvious. So even if you have identical twins, they hardly ever are identical, although the genetical material is the same. Even if you clone individuals, right? If you clone animals, they hardly ever indistinguishable. There are differences, meaningful differences, which shows how important the environmental influences are. So, and here's our friend. Remember this? I showed you this friend on the photo, on the movie earlier, when I emphasized that the cultural ornaments were beautiful, but they didn't interfere into the core characteristic of a beautiful face. So none of the photoshoppers from a different culture said, in our culture we really appreciate asymmetry, right? We really appreciate asymmetry. Because the idea might be, so if larger eyes are perceived as more beautiful, right? If larger eyes are perceived as more beautiful, and it's true, then having one larger eye would make you more beautiful, because the larger your eyes, the more beautiful you are. If you ignore the asymmetry, the symmetry rule, right? So the thinking would be, okay, so if symmetry is arbitrary, if it doesn't play a significant role, then if larger eyes are beautiful, so having the sum of size of your eyes would be the criterion for the evaluation of your beauty. So having one eye larger, even larger, so she's beautiful because she has large eyes, and if her twin sister has one eye even larger, she's even more beautiful. And I think I know what's your impression about this, but I think that this one is still more beautiful. The one genetically enhanced, a genetical manipulation that failed, eye size enhancement. So if it was the rule that we would perceive this person as more beautiful, but I think that you agree. Do you agree with this? I think so. Is there anyone who thinks that she looks much more beautiful here? Although I'm really curious now. When I the more I look at her, she looks more and more intriguing. There might be something intriguing in her. Wow. Now I don't know. Is there anyone among you who thinks that because both are beautiful, but that this characteristic is more beautiful than this one? Is there anyone? Because now I start thinking about this. So fluctuating symmetry is here the key word that's worth mentioning, that might reflect some developmental instabilities and is related to health, fetal outcomes, psychological maladaptation, reproductive outcomes, sexual hormones effects, and so on. So it's a marker, like it's one of the markers that we have. It's like the finger marker that we have, like influence to testosterone. If your second finger is shorter, much shorter than the fourth finger, it means that you were subjected to high levels of testosterone, and you are more likely to be masculinized by the end of the first trimester of your life in your mother's womb. So symmetry is one of the key elements. You can manipulate it a little bit with your makeup if you want, and this is what people very, very often do. I can manipulate it with my glasses not to look like this. But people do it, right? So yeah, it also shows if we didn't appreciate symmetry, right? I wouldn't complain on having like glasses like this, but we do. Oh, if you focus on eyes only, I think it's even more obvious. Although I don't know. Are you still listening to me, or are you're eating your dinner? Because really, now I look at her. When I look at her here, there is something intriguing in her left eye. So, if the symmetry is too high, we also, right? So too much of a good thing. Symmetry is okay. We like symmetry, but if there is too much symmetry, then it becomes less attractive. And if you take 100% symmetrical pictures of her face, she suddenly becomes less attractive. Do you think so? Is she still here, the most attractive? Although when I mixed these photos in Photoshop, I noticed that she's very she's not, she is, we all are, but she is quite asymmetrical. Her face is quite asymmetrical. If you draw a line here by the middle of the nose, you can see that it's a little bit here left to the mouth. Here the mouth goes a little bit higher. This eye is a little bit higher as well. This eyebrow is a little bit higher as well. So she is asymmetrical to a large extent. So it's not but still it does not influence our evaluation of her real her as more attractive than these strange 100% symmetrical clones that we might devise. So extreme symmetry, there's something repulsive in extreme symmetry. This is a problem in computer games, for instance, that they look not very, because they very often, like Lara Croft, for instance, from the Tomb Raider, she is attractive, but not many people fall in love with her because she doesn't look very naturalistic, very real. But because she's so symmetrical, and if you look at Wiedźmin, for instance, the Witcher, those computer models are asymmetrical to a large extent. It makes them much more attractive, although they generally can possess less attractive features. And so if you have symmetrical face, although Marilyn Monroe doesn't have very symmetrical face. Now when I look at her, you could emphasize some add some asymmetrical feature to your face to emphasize the symmetry. Call the symmetry. So we'll talk about attractiveness and sexual dimorphism at the next lecture. And the next lecture will be the final lecture about attractiveness, I assure you. But I think it's a very important subject. So let's make a short break with Marilyn Monroe here, and let's meet in 10 minutes, guys. Is there anyone listening to me? If you are, I just want to test whether you really ignored me, and you were just kind enough to leave, not to close the streaming window. If there's any, oh Julia, thank you for being here. You really make me still believe in you, Martin, in your goodwill. So I'll go and take a snack. Anna's also here. Okay, so I'll go and take my Lays chips, a couple of snacks. So see you in 10 minutes. I will post the second link in a moment, or I will send you via your email. So see you in 10 minutes.